Hey, this is Alicia,
This is Melissa.
and this is Dark.
Dark.
So it was good to see you this weekend.
It was good to see you too.
Yeah, that was awesome. Like, I know we hadn't seen each other in like years.
Surprise!
It was good to
I was
see.
like, I know where they are. I'm just gonna go ahead and
Yeah, it was good to see the nephew. He looking adorable as always. With his
skinny
little
as a
hind.
beanpole.
Yes, yes. But wasn't like his dad super skinny too? So like, I mean, when he was
No,
that age, or was he?
no,
He
no,
wasn't.
no. We don't know where he gets his skinniness from. No, Pitt's always been a big, muscular guy, so we don't know where he gets this from.
Who knows? He'll probably stay like
Genetics.
that. Genetics. It's weird, right? But yeah, I spent the weekend in Morganton, had fun. I went to the lake on Saturday, or was it Friday? Let me think about that. It was Friday, yeah. Found some very interesting things out about Lake James this weekend, and I'm not gonna like go too deep into it because I really want to do like a parallel between Lake James and Lake Lanier because it is so fitting. They are just like it's insane how much they're like one another. I mean, unlike Lake Lanier where they just basically just left everything, and just
Yeah.
flooded the area. They did move some things from Lake James, but it's still kind of it's unreal how scary it is. But you're gonna like this one. So me and Greta, for those of you who are listening, is my daughter. She's my youngest, and we were driving through the downtown city of Morganton. There's this insane asylum there called Broughton.
Oh, Broughton.
Yeah, you know about Broughton. Like a lot of
I
people.
have a book called Working the Graveyard Shift at Broughton,
Yeah,
signed by the author.
yeah. It's that's another one of those. Whew,
I'll get to it one day.
Yeah, Travis was telling me about how they got on video a nurse being strangled by a ghost there. It's pretty crazy stuff.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and also too, that is also the home of Frankie Silver, who was actually featured on Deadly Women.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I forgot to mention this last week. Charles Manson actually did some time at Trans Allegheny.
No way, I did not know that.
Yes.
Oh, that
Yes.
explains
I
a lot
found that
too.
out after the fact.
Gotcha.
He spent some time at the Looney Bin too, which,
Hmm.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, well,
makes sense.
it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I'm titling this one Alicia reads the Pee Wee Gaskins autobiography so you don't have to
So sit
because
back, grab your cup of tea, and enjoy.
yeah, this is pretty deep. And I'm going to put myself on mute for 1 second to tell the youngest child in the house that she's going to need to cover her ears up a little bit because this is getting disturbing. So, all right, here it goes. So, whew, this was tough to get through. One of the reasons why this was so tough was because I actually read his autobiography. Now, whenever you're watching stuff on TV or you're reading a book about somebody that's not written by them, it's kind of easy to disassociate yourself from the topic.
Yes,
It's
yes.
it's so much easier for you to kind of take it in. This one was hard, mostly because okay, I'll just get into it because you'll understand. So, just for everybody who is listening, I was born in Florence, South Carolina. Well, guess what? Donald Henry Parrott Jr., also known as Donald Henry Pee Wee Gaskins Jr., was born March 13th, 1933. Now, that's what one source says. According to him, he was born on March 31st, 1933. But according to another source, he was born on March 19th, 1933, which happens to be,
Is
yeah,
Alicia's birthday.
yep, that is my birthday. So he was also born in Florence, South Carolina, to Eula Parrott. Side note, Eula was my grandfather's cousin.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, he never knew who his real father was. His mom had him at age 14, and she was a prostitute. She didn't know much about who his real father was. Well, no. The way
I have
that
one of those in the family. It's fine.
yeah,
I
so
understand.
yeah, so it's kind of like one of those things where he basically started out with a really rough life. He was only 5'4", which makes a lot of sense because my entire family on my dad's side is uber short, and that's where I get my height from because I'm only 5 foot tall. There's that.
If it makes you feel any better, Charles Manson died on my birthday.
Oh, he did.
He died November 19th, 2017,
Huh.
while I was reading a book about the family.
That's pretty crazy. I did not know that.
Yes,
That's
he died on my birthday.
Ah, well, craziness there. So, obviously, when somebody's named Pee Wee, you would assume that they're getting this nickname because of their
Their
size, in which,
their stature.
yeah, yeah, and unaffectionately got this nickname. He hated it. Oh, he hated it. But he eventually embraced it later on in his life. We'll talk about how that actually bit him in the butt later. So, he said in his autobiography that he absolutely hated school. And the reason why he hated school so much was because of the fact that people constantly picked on him for his size. I'm going to go ahead and preface this. I should have done this in the very beginning, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys right here and right now. This story is coming with trigger warnings. Some pretty
Oh, we
bad
love
trigger.
a good trigger warning.
This is going to be talking about pedophilia, bestiality,
Oh, shit.
rape, torture, sexual sadism, kidnapping, murder, and anything that you can think of when it comes to any of this stuff. This is pretty bad stuff. Like when I say that I read this so you don't have to, I'm advising for the majority of the people listening, unless you just really just don't have it in you to feel. This
I
is
understand that. I'm that way about my story right now.
Yeah, this is hard. So we're gonna start off in the very beginning. Like I said, he was born sometime in March. Like I said, the actual date is unknown, but
To be determined.
to be determined. I don't know. So obviously he was picked on for his size in school, and he got in a lot of fights. However, the one thing about Pee Wee Gaskins was the fact that, and I'm going to call him Pee Wee because he hated his name, so that's what I'm going to call him. Just to piss him off situation. It's kind of like on Morbid when they refused to call BTK BTK.
Yes.
They just called him Dennis.
Yes.
So yeah, this big fuck you to Pee Wee Gaskins. So anyway, he like I said, he hated school, but one good thing about him was the fact that he was actually really good at taking apart things and putting them back together again. So he could take apart like radios and cars and just
He was
things.
mechanically inclined.
Right, exactly. And it even said in his autobiography, his mom said that Pee Wee can fix anything. So at the age of 10, he started realizing how much he really hated school. Like he really, really hated school. And he decided he was going to drop out. So he did. He dropped out of school. But his stepfather at the time, because his mom had married this man, and he hated his stepfather, but he didn't hate him to the point of where he didn't respect him. He kind of had a little bit of a respect for him. And I think the reason why was because he actually came in and, tried, like some of her other boyfriends who would just beat him up and abuse him and, leave him to the wayside. He actually tried, I guess you can
Yeah.
say.
He put forth effort.
Right, exactly. So he decided he's going to quit school to work on cars at a filling station. Now, his mom was, oh, sorry, didn't mean to hit my mic. His mom was
That
not.
happened at exactly the same time that my lovely neighbor, his lawnmower backfired. So that wasn't a gunshot. If you could hear that, that was That was a lawnmower backfiring.
Great timing, great timing.
Oh, gotta love living in the country.
Oh yeah. So his stepfather actually saw it as a great opportunity because he's like, school, you know how to put things together and take it apart, put it back together again, and plus I need help on the farm. So cool, you can quit. But the stipulation was that he could only work on cars and stuff on Saturdays at the filling station, and every other time he was supposed to be on the farm helping his stepdad work.
Mhm.
So he was cool. He was cool with it. Now, here comes the fun stuff. So this is his young life. Now we're talking 10 years old here, 10, 11 years old, and I'm actually going to be reading some excerpts from his autobiography, just for the sake of making sure that we don't get sued.
Yeah, please don't sue us.
I'm going to do a little thing here just to make sure we get our butts covered. The name of the book that I'm going to be referencing is called Final Truth, the Autobody of a Serial Killer. It is written by Pee Wee Gaskins and Wilton Earl, who basically helped him get this published. Now, here's the funny thing. Are you ready for this one? This one's going to freak you out a little bit. The actual book itself was in such a limited print that in order for you to purchase it on Amazon, the hardcover is $221, while the paperback is $902.
Jeez Louise, Mother Mary.
Yeah, that in itself was like, what? Yeah, it was published on May 1st, 1992. And so, yeah, I just want to kind of let everybody know that this is what I'm referencing. So any quotes or anything that I read from it is coming from that. Yeah. So, he became friends with two boys right around the time that he turned about 10, 11 years old.
Mhm.
And their names were Danny and Marsh. I know what you're thinking. Shush it. Anyway, so he said that the biggest thing about him was that no matter how great things were going at home, no matter how much him and his stepdad started getting along, and that his sisters and brothers were getting along, and his family was good and peaceful finally, there was something in him that always felt like it was getting bigger, hotter, until it felt like, this is the exact quote, other times it growed bigger and hotter, like it was going to explode. Every once in a while I dreamed, and I still do, that it blowed me apart, and there were all these millions of little pieces and parts of me running around and flying and trying to find each other to put me back together again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He said what I was doing didn't amount to much. So he teamed up with these two boys. And they got this place called the Hideout, right? And the Hideout was this abandoned shack that was right around the same area of where his mom and stepdad lived. Him and his friends learned things that most 10 to 13-year-old boys usually don't learn from other boys, such as masturbation, sex with other boys, which is what he calls cornholing, by the way. Oh,
Okay.
and even this, yes, this is so fucked up. How to have sex with farm animals.
That sounds like a dummies book.
The how to, yeah,
Yes.
how to be is learned by. But yeah, so they named themselves the Trouble Trio. They were older than him, and they knew how to make money. And what they would do is they would break open vending machines and stole the money for cigarettes and drinks and hid a lot of that stuff in the barn behind his house. And like you said, he was really good at fixing things. So he had this idea. He had a little business repairing radios and sewing machines, and people would bring him stuff to that filling station on Saturdays for him to be able to fix it. One day, this older man came in, and he's like, "Hey, I've got this big standing radio that needs to be fixed, but I don't want to lug it all the way here. Can you come to my house and fix it?" And they were like,
Mm-hmm.
"Sure, cool." This is during World War II. Gas was rationed, and I'm reading this directly from the book, by the way. It said in South Carolina, you could get a driver's license when you were 14. I wasn't old enough to have one, but Danny did. And what's more, his daddy had a pickup truck that he let us ride around in, provided we always brought it back with a full tank of gas. So they'd go and break into gas stations.
Hoodlum stuff.
Yeah, figure out how to steal gas and do all this other stuff. So when he told his friends about this idea about breaking in to steal from this man who had stuff in his house, because obviously if you got one of those big stand-up radios, you've got money. And Danny's dad was a former felon. He had done time in state prisons and stuff in Georgia. And so he knew people who would pay money for these things that they would steal. So they would go and they would steal stuff and they'd sell it. But Danny's dad gave him advice. Said, don't go out spending all that money because people will know that you're the one stealing stuff.
Don't be dumb.
Right, don't be dumb about it. So what they would do is they trusted Danny's dad to keep the money for them. And whenever they needed something, they'd go to him. He was kind of like their bank, you know. Now, like I said, I'm gonna be reading some direct quotes from this thing because it's just, whew, his mind is just, it's crazy. Sometimes we headed to
Fucked up.
Columbia. Yeah, pretty messed up. Sometimes we headed to Columbia or Charleston where there were military bases and plenty of horrors.
Wow.
Okay, I want you guys to keep in mind this boy is 11 years old.
Already talking about horrors.
Yeah, yeah. Talking about horrors, talking about kind of stuff.
Robbing people and
Yeah, but there was something about them horrors that we didn't like, according to him. We agreed that jacking off at the hideout was almost as good.
wow.
He said Marsh thought the hideout was better than the horrors. He liked English is hard, y'all. He liked cornholing the younger boys and letting them cornhole him, and he liked to perform fellatio. So Danny and Pee Wee weren't really too much into that kind of stuff, although they would watch. Yep.
And normally I'm not normally speechless. You know me.
I
But
know.
wow.
Yeah. So there was
Wow.
that. It said most girls our age wouldn't even go with us because we all had quit school and were considered wild, right? And
Mhm.
they said that they let it be known that the back seat of their Ford, because the money that they made from stealing stuff when they gave it to Danny's dad, they ended up using that money to buy a Ford car, and that's what they used to drive around town in. And they would let it known that the back seat of their Ford was for fucking.
Jesus. But not the horrors.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, this is when it's going to start getting a little more graphic. Okay.
Oh, I was about to say, it's not already graphic?
It's just gonna get a little bit worse. So one night they were riding around town like they always did, and Marsh said that what he wanted was a virgin. So they decided that they hatched an idea that they were going to find a girl, take her to the hideout, and rape her. And it ended up being Marsh's younger sister.
Mm.
They took her there. They did what they set out to do.
Unspeakable things.
And I am not going to read this directly as a quote because let me tell you something. It is more graphic than I can even imagine. Like I was reading this thing and my jaw was like to my chin halfway through this book already. I was just like, "Oh my god, are you and this isn't even the worst. This is not even the worst." Okay? That's what's sad about this. So when they finished with her and they took her home and they promised to give her money, she ended up telling her mom anyway about what happened.
Good for her.
Yeah, she did tell him. Her mother was driving the car that came barreling into our front yard, skidded right up to the front porch steps and stopped. She bounced out, grabbed me, and before I could say or do shit, she knocked me aside the head with her fist, and I dropped like a rock cold.
Good job, Mama. Good
Uh,
job, Mama.
She said she was standing practically on top of me. She called me every unchristian kind name of book she could think of, and punctuated every one with a kick to his gut. Next thing they knew, they stripped Marsh and him, because Danny ran away, by the way.
I probably would have. I can understand that. Like, he was probably gone.
Yeah, they hung him and Marsh upside down by their ankles in the barn and whooped their asses until they were bleeding.
Jesus.
Yep. He said, I was just about to pass out when I heard Marsh's mama scream, "You goddamn little piece of shit, I ought to cut it off right here and now." And I realized I had a heart on.
I have no words.
Yeah. Well, she didn't cut it off, but she did take the belt from his stepdaddy and beat his manhood with it.
I still have no words.
He thought he was going to be useless for the rest of his life, but unfortunately, that was not the case.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, wishful thinking. So, like I said, Danny left. Marsh ended up leaving too because after what happened, there was no way that they were going to stick around for any of that. His repair business kept going. So he's about 13 at this time. right? He would go to like Charleston and Columbia whore hopping. That's what he says. And he
Hmm.
either stayed at home or went to the gas station and hide out. And all the boys there showed him some respect because they had heard about the trouble. So here's how he got in trouble.
Like he wasn't already in trouble.
Yeah, I know. It's like, why did this not be the end all be all?
Yeah.
Like why was this first act right here not the end all be all of the whole situation? That's the part that I don't understand. But it is what it is. So he was working at the filling station. Now, just to let you know, he lived in a town inside Florence County called Johnsonville, which is it's a pretty I wouldn't say super small, but I mean it is smaller than the city of Florence now, but he basically knew everybody there. Everybody knew him for who he was and everything he'd been doing and all this other stuff. But it was just always like, oh well, that Pee Wee's just trouble. So one Saturday he's working at the hideout, or excuse me, he's not working at the hideout. He's working at the filling station, and this guy who would come in was stationed at a naval base in North Charleston during the war, and drove up and he said that they needed to make some extra money and wanted to know what they could do to make this extra money. So he told him there might be some things worth stealing in that county because he had done it himself. So this guy, his name was Walt, said that he could handle anything, and
Hmm.
he picked him up at the hideout, and they decided to break into this house. Well, what they didn't know was that this family that they thought was going to be gone wasn't gone, and
Oh no.
there was a girl standing there with a hatchet in her hand, and she knew
Oh
him.
shit.
She knew him, and she said, "Junior, what are you doing in here?" And she swung it at him, and so Walt ran. Right, he didn't want any part of it. So he grabbed her arm, snatched the axe or the hatchet away from her, and then hit her on the back of the head with the blunt side a couple times.
Mm.
Then he heard a shotgun. Well, he ran out the back door, then heard a shotgun blast, and buckshot sprinkled the trees around him. So somebody was coming after him. So he ran halfway. He said, "I ran halfway across the county to his mama's house, and two sheriff deputies in 10 minutes. Two deputies and a sheriff got there within 10 minutes after he did. Took him to jail, did his mugshot, printed him, and ended up putting him in a reform school with a charge of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill. So he went to a reformatory for boys, better known as the State Reformatory, which was in Florence, South Carolina, on National Cemetery Road. Now, National Cemetery Road is where they actually have the cemetery where they bury a lot of local servicemen and women in this area. So this road's kind of like a really busy road that has like all these like in industries and things like that. But back then, that's where they actually had the South Carolina Reform School for boys. And I'm not saying, and let me rephrase that: the South Carolina Reform School for white boys, because 30s segregation, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So basically, they put him in there, taught him trades: metalworking, mechanics, carpentry. Demerits were given out. They did something stupid or whatever.
Which I have a feeling this is about to turn into something he did very stupid.
Let's just say that he's seen the inside of this place a couple of times. So one of the things about going into a boys' school reformatory like this was same way it is in a lot of prisons. You have a pecking order. The biggest guy in the dorm was a guy named Poss, Poss. He was over 6 feet, weighed over 200 pounds.
Oh, he's a big boy.
Yep, and decided that Pee Wee was going to be his. And he
Oh
did.
no.
Yeah, he was his. He decided after a while that he was just going to deal with it, and decided, the best part or the best thing for him to do was to just let it happen.
Grin and bear it.
Grin and bear it. His mama came to see him all the time, brought him food. She tried to spend as much time with him as she possibly could. One day, he decided that he was going to try to escape. Didn't work.
It didn't turn out too well.
Nah, he was brought right back. Then, after that happened, he escaped. I'm trying to find where it was. It's interesting. Okay, there it is. Okay, so he said that was, that feeling he got in the pit of his stomach all the time, that little urge to do stuff,
Mm-hmm.
boiled over, and he ended up beating up one of the night officers, Bert Calcutt. Kicked him in the stomach, kicked him in the balls, kicked him in the face. When he doubled over, they tried that. It took 2 isolation guards to pull him off of him. So they ended up taking him to the superintendent's office, and they sent him to the state mental hospital on Bull Street in Columbia. So he spent 5 weeks in solitary there. And
Which we all know how well solitary does. It doesn't really solve much of anything.
especially when you're the type of person like him, where that actually can make them worse because it gives them time to think and get angry and mull over everything that, like
Yes.
that.
Solitary was a barbaric solution to a lot
Exactly.
of problems.
Exactly. So this happened a lot. Where he, like I said, he would have this anyway, sorry. Okay. So he ended up going to Bull Street, which is it's very widely known in South Carolina as like the uh, epitome of the scary state mental hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So he spent some time there, and he met with a psychiatrist who, did the whole what was your childhood like, and why do you feel the need to do the things you're doing? The whole 9 yards of what they usually do with people who are having these issues. And asked him if he believed in God. Asked him, just the normal stuff. And the psychiatrist commented about how he thought that maybe the stuff that happened to him when he was little was what was making him act the way he was acting. And he thought about it. And he's like, you may be right. But he asked him why he kept running away from the reform school. And he taught him
Well, it's
about,
a reform school.
right. And he was like, people are constantly beating up on me. And he didn't want to tell him about the other things,
Yeah.
because I mean, that's kind of embarrassing for that time period. You just don't talk about, gang rape and things like that have happened inside of reform schools. So after 3 months, they decided that, or excuse me, after 2 months, they sent him back to the reformatory, which they weren't supposed to do that. Apparently, they screwed up and missed out his paperwork because he had actually gone into the hospital with a ruptured appendix, and he was supposed to go back to the psychiatric ward, but instead they mixed up the paperwork and accidentally sent him back to the reformatory.
Oops.
So he got back there, and things were going okay, as okay as it could in the reformatory, because he at the end of 3 months they planned to send him back out on a night cruise. He decided whatever he decided to do, they were just gonna keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up Poss ended up leaving, and he escaped again. So after he escaped, he went and found Poss. He found him in Sumter, which is about 45 minutes to an hour away from here. And his uncle worked for a carnival, a traveling carnival. So he found Poss's uncle, then found Poss, and they ended up going up and down through Florida, North Carolina, Georgia. And when he got back to Sumter after doing this little tour for about 6 months, he's still an escapee from the reform school. They could send him back at any time because he's not 18 yet. He's
Mm-hmm.
still he's still about close to 14. No, let me try that again. He's 17 at this time, right? And this is when he met Mary. Mary was 13 and a half years old, and he claims the most beautiful girl he.
That would be sweet if she wasn't 13.
Right, I agree 120%. And he asked her to marry him, and she said no.
Good girl.
She said she didn't want to be married to a boy who couldn't even walk down Main Street because the law was looking for him.
I mean, that makes sense.
But he got his way. Married her. January 22nd, 1951. Spent one night with her before he surrendered himself back to the reformatory. They decided no lashes for him, just hard labor, because they knew that he was fixing to come of age, because he was about to turn
Age out.
18. Yeah, he was about to age out. And so what he did was, because he knew that there was nothing they could do to him at this point, because he was about to age out. So what he would do is he figured out that he could open up all the cell blocks with his belt, and he would go through the reformatory and open up all the cells with his belt, and it pissed off the superintendent because every time they would
Well,
let him
shit.
out, the officers questioned him and said, "Okay, how did you guys get out?" And all they would say is, "Pee Wee let us out."
Well, shit. Well, you said he was good at taking things apart and putting things back together, so the mechanics of a jail cell probably wasn't above his reach.
Right, right. Now, keep in mind at this time, he had decided while he was in his last few months of reform school that he was going to go straight. He was going to get out, he was going to get a job, he was going to be with his wife, which, by the way, was still 13 and a half. Yeah, we're just going to let that sink in a little bit longer.
Yeah, no, that's just.
Yeah,
Again, that would be really adorable if she wasn't 13.
yeah, I know. So he got released, and he went back to work, doing construction work. And he did like bricks and shingles, and all he wanted to do was work on cars. But that was really hard because everybody who was in World War II came back looking for the same kind of mechanics jobs because pretty much that's what they did
Yeah.
in the war. So it was really hard to find that kind of stuff. Everybody knew of him in the town because of his reputation of everything that he had done. So none of them were actually too keen on hiring him in the first place because of his reputation, which I do not blame them. So he would do what we in the South called shade tree repairman. In other words, my daddy was a shade tree repairman. What we mean by that is they would literally pull the vehicles up under the shade of a tree and work on the vehicle, and that's what he would do. But of course, between that and being day labor, with working construction and everything like that, couldn't afford to support him and his wife, and especially after his wife got pregnant. And they needed to make more money, obviously. And of course, he knew that everybody was keeping an eye on him because of everything that happened. So he moved from Florence to Georgetown, which is on the coast. It's near Myrtle Beach. And when they moved there, they decided to work on a farm, which in the South, especially in South Carolina in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, working on a farm was like pretty much all there was in this area. And the biggest crop in this area was tobacco crops before other things started taking over because the FDA cracked down on tobacco products and everything. So that was our big thing here. Well, so what he ended up doing, he ended up becoming friends with this guy named Slick, which, anybody named Slick you got to probably be worried about. But
That's what my oldest brother's nickname was.
right, but he was also at the reformatory as well. So that right there in itself is kind of sketchy to begin with. But he actually knew him from the reform school, and they got talking, and he was like, "Hey, I've got this job. If you guys want it, you can have it." Basically, what they would do is they would go to work on these tobacco farms and do something called grading. My dad did this when he was a teenager. Essentially, they would pull the tobacco out of the fields, they would hang it and dry it on these big tobacco sticks, and then what they would do is they would go into the barns and they would determine whether or not the tobacco was worth selling or not.
Yeah.
And so that was what he was supposed to do, this grading tobacco. That's essentially what it was. He did a lot of work on the tractor equipments, truck equipments, things like that. She worked in the actual barns. They were making money. Everything was going great for them, right? Like, everything was going great. Well, it's Pee Wee Gaskins, so obviously not everything's going to be going great. And,
Something's going to get fucked up.
oh yeah, of course it is, because one day, Slick picked him up and said, "Hey, we're going to go burn down this barn." See, what they would do is they would grade the tobacco, say it was worth this much amount of money, and then him and Slick would go burn down these barns, knowing how much the money was in these barns, and they would claim it on the insurance and actually not burn down the tobacco. They would actually move the tobacco, burn down the barn, and say that it was lost in the fire, and then go and sell it across the North Carolina state border.
Of course, they would bring their shit up here.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I mean, where else is it going to go? So they did this a couple of times, right? And by then they had thousands of dollars. So finally, he went to Slick and he's like, "Look, I know this is worth a lot of money, and you're not giving me our fair share." And Slick was like, "Okay. Okay." Well, he never really push the issue too much, but he did kind of let Slick know, hey, I know what kind of money we got going on here. So remember I told you his nickname was going to come back to bite him in the ass?
Yeah.
So he went to a bar with Slick one night, and they got drunk, and they were hanging out with these two girls, and he bet them $10 that he wouldn't go to the back room and get tattooed. And he
Oh,
did.
shit.
And on the back shoulder, he had the word Pee-wee written on the back shoulder. So yeah, that was a thing that happened. That's going to come back later. So one morning, deputies came to his house and they were looking for Slick. They couldn't find him. They said that his ex-wife and her new husband had been killed, and Slick had been seen to be the one that was going into the house at the time. So yeah, so that basically kind of lost him a lot of money because Slick was the one who was in the barn burning business, and this new guy who came into the farm where he worked wasn't going to do this thing. And so he basically just lost a lot of money. Well,
Which he probably wasn't very happy about.
oh, he was not very happy at all, especially when, because of this, now what he didn't know was Flick was paying them ahead of time. I think I hit my mic again. He was paying them ahead of time for work that should not have been paid ahead of time. It should have been paid out at the end and not at the beginning, but he was doing it as like a favor to them because he knew that they were kind of struggling. And this new guy was like, okay, well, we're not going to pay you at the beginning. We're going to pay you at the end. So all the money that they had coming into them wasn't coming into them anymore. And he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, they started kind of struggling a little bit. And there was this girl who was like the daughter of one of the guys who ran the farm, came in and was like talking to him and was saying, you ain't worth the trouble, Pee-wee. You aren't even good enough to kiss my ass.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like, she was just talking, all kinds of shit to him. And he got pissed off. And because, that's the type of person he was. Like, if you left him alone, he wouldn't bother you. You know what I mean? Like, he was the type of guy that was just like, whatever. But if you made fun of him, it pissed him off. God, I swear. You hear my cat? Can you hear my cat?
Yes, I can hear your cat
I
having a
apologize.
whole fit.
I apologize to all my listeners. She is not a happy cat right now. You hear that?
She's having a whole fit.
She is so mad right now, and I don't know what she's mad about. So I apologize, everybody. You're just gonna have to listen to my cat for a little bit. So as I was saying, he gets so pissed off about her just talking shit to him, right? So he picked up a hammer and smacked her right behind her right ear.
Shit!
Yeah. And then kicked her in the face for good measure, according to him.
Well, shit.
There was another girl that was with her, and she ran out of the barn, scared as could be. So he realized what he had done. He realized he had fucked up. He went to Mary, and he's like, here's where I keep the cash for you and the baby, because I'm going back to jail. Seriously, that's literally what it was. It's like, I'm going back to jail. So he went and hung out at the Legion Hut, which was a kind of like the American Legion. He hung out there trying to basically keep from being found. And, well, he got caught up with it. Prosecutor charged him with attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon with the intent to inflict grave bodily harm and arson.
Well, damn.
So they tried him on the arson charge first, but they didn't have much evidence. So they let that go. But they did have the evidence for the attempted murder thing where he hit the girl in the head with the hammer. Because, I mean, obviously.
Well, yeah, there's evidence of that.
Yeah, there's definitely evidence of that. So one night, the solicitor, his name is J. Reuben Long, which is funny to me because J. Reuben Long, the jail here in Florence County, is called the J. Reuben Long Detention Center now.
Oh.
So it's a little bit of history. Yeah, so it's named after the former solicitor. So that's pretty neat little history there. They came to him and said, hey, what we're going to do this. We're going to, if he would plead guilty, less charge of assault and battery, he would drop the attempted murder charge. And he'd only get 18 months.
Oh, isn't that right nice of him?
Yeah, exactly. There was one problem with that. He said, okay, great, I'll do it. But he didn't get it in writing. So
always get shit in writing.
I mean, I'm sorry. If it's, I mean, I have watched way too much like First 48 and stuff like that. If they're going to tell me something like this, I'm going to be like, okay, you write it down. And I want it like
Want it in writing, you sign it, I'll sign it, and then I'll tell you what you want to know.
exactly, exactly. Well, it took him before the judge, and the judge asked him how he pleaded. I plead guilty.
Oh,
He said, your plea is
shit.
accepted, and I hereby sentence you to South Carolina State Penitentiary in Columbia for a period of 5 years.
Well, shit.
His lawyer was like, 5 years? Your Honor, there was a plea bargain. Like, what in the world is going on here? And they're like, well, he goes, after reviewing the evidence, I've rejected that agreement and sentenced you to 5 years. And he looked at the judge and said, well, fuck you, you old son of a bitch.
Wow.
And so the judge banged his gavel and said, that'll be one additional year for contempt.
Wow. This guy is crazy.
I'm like, dude, okay, I mean, keep your mouth shut. He got 6 years instead of 5. So he went to the South Carolina State Penitentiary, which is in Columbia. This place is huge, by the way. I've been by it a couple of times. There pecking order there as well. I mean, it's something
It's a
about
prison.
reform. Yeah, it's something about reform schools, penitentiaries, whatever. There's always a pecking order, and so he was on kitchen duty at first, which apparently that's what they put everybody on the first time they're there because they're just trying to fill them out or whatever. And there was something called powermen of the pen.
Mm-hmm.
And these powermen, they got the choice of whoever they wanted to be their,
Bitch.
yeah, basically. And there was this
I'll
guy.
say it. I
Yeah.
said what I said.
I mean, that's basically it. Yeah. So there was this guy by the name of Arthur. Arthur was his man who basically took over him. And yeah, there was a lot of gang
Brown
rape.
chicken.
Yeah.
Brown cow.
Yeah, exactly. And there was, anyway, the problem was with that, they basically worked all kinds of deals with other inmates, right? So they could basically trade out their men whenever they wanted to. Now, one thing that he realized was that unlike the reformatory, he can't just escape like he was doing with the reformatory because you're
Yeah,
in
no,
the pen now.
this is a different ball game.
Right. And so because of this, he knew that his biggest thing was that if he wanted to make his life easier in jail, that the only way that he could do that was to do what they called making his bones, aka he had to kill somebody. And he couldn't just kill somebody. It had to be somebody in power. And that's what he decided to do. He talked about one of the meanest inmates there. His name was Hazel Brazil, right?
Mm-hmm.
His big man, right? He could basically did whatever he wanted to. Nobody said a thing to him, not even the guards, nobody. So about 6 months in, he heard about this Brazil guy basically not abiding by the rules because there were trading rules. Like if you wanted something, you had to trade. Like there was that, but he was just stealing it. He was just taking it and not abiding by the rules of the inside. And when he found this out, he was like, "This is the guy. This is the guy that's going to make me a power man." So what he did was he was working in laundry at the time. Oh, excuse me, he was still working in the kitchen. My bad. Laundry's a different time. He's working in the kitchen at the time, and he knew that Brazil liked to eat. He knew what his schedule was. He found everything he needed to know about this guy. So for a couple days, he would go and he would bring him food, bring him drink, bring him anything he wanted, and he would just set it outside his jail cell. And a couple times, he finally started getting into being able to sit it inside the jail cell. And so one day, he walked in, and none of the boys were around that usually protected Brazil's cell. So he come in with the sandwich and a drink, and Brazil was sitting on the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
He walks in and is talking to him.
Oh, don't tell me the man kills him on the toilet.
Brazil farted real loud and grunted. I put the food down, palmed the knife from my pocket, took 2 steps towards the toilet. He looked at me and said, "What the fuck are you staring at?" and jabbed the knife into his left jugular vein and sliced toward his Adam's apple.
Wow. Man can't even take a shit
I know, right?
without someone slicing his throat open.
Yeah, pretty much it. And so he just sat on the cot waiting for them to come in, grab him, cut a deal, plea bargain to manslaughter. Oh,
Wow.
gave him 9, 6 concurrent with the 6 he was already serving, which meant just 3 extra.
Mm-hmm.
which to me, like, holy
That's all
shit,
he got?
that's all he got. But it made him a big boy in jail now because he had killed the biggest guy in jail. Now here's the thing. 1955, he found out that Mary was divorcing him. She had enough. She was like, I'm not doing this. She's like, you're in jail. I'm not going to see you. I need to live my life. She left, and it hurt him. It actually hurt him. Like, he actually loved this woman, but he knew that even if he escaped, she wasn't going to take him back because she was done. She was completely done with him this time. But he ended up escaping anyway. Yeah, he fit into one of those garbage drums. Went
Oh
into the back.
my god.
Well, he was so skinny. He was tiny.
But still, a garbage drum?
Yeah, he was like super teeny tiny, and he just like stuck him in there, and they helped him escape. And he was a power man. Being a power man, he could basically do whatever he wanted to. Like, nobody's gonna say anything to him. So he basically left, and he ended up going into Lake City, which is another small town in Florence County. And he had a cousin by the name of David Gaskins who owned a gas station there, and he ended up stealing a vehicle from his cousin, and he went down to Lake Wales, Florida. The reason why he went down to Lake Wales, Florida was because Poss was down there with the carnival, and he knew that if he went down there, he was going to have a job. So he went and found him, and they met back up again, and they became friends, and everything was going pretty good. He loved the carnival. They were traveling. It was a good place for him to be because nobody was going to look for him in a carnival. So Poss's wife introduced him to this lady by the name of Junie Alice Holt. She was 19, and at this time, I think he was 55, 30, so he was 22 at the time. All right.
Mm-hmm. I'm
This would
guessing
be
math is hard.
Yeah, math is hard, so I'm assuming 20, 22. Anyway, he was in his 20s. Which you'll find out her age is kind of old for him. But anyway, yeah. So he met this woman, Junie Alice Holden, ended up marrying her. They got married, stayed together 2 weeks, money ran out, and she all of a sudden didn't want to have anything to do with him.
Oh, well, shit.
So he
That was
took her back.
fast.
Yeah, I know. Like, wow, okay, that's all it took. So he took her back to Lake Wales, where he met her. And sorry, my brain just went, woo. Okay. So he started spending more time with one of the girly show dancers, is what he calls them. Her name, or excuse me, her stage name was Zena from Zanzibar.
Oh, shit.
Her real name, which she told him in the beginning, was Helen McCoy. Come to find out, her real name was Betty Jean. I'm trying to remember her last name. Betty Jean Gates. Okay. Now this is I'm sorry. This
From
part right here.
Zanzibar. Oh my god.
Xena from Zanzibar. No, okay, so Bailey Sarian did a thing on this, and I didn't know this part of the story from reading some other old stuff, that I had read before. Now,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to preface this. The only way that I knew this autobiography existed in the first place was because when I was a teenager, my grandmother read this book. And now that I think about it, I'm like, Nanny, no. Why? Nanny, what?
Picturing your grandmother reading this book.
It's just wrong.
Yes.
And all my sweet little Nanny just sitting here reading this book. I walked into her bedroom one night, and I'm like, "What are you reading?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm reading this autobiography about Pee Wee Gaskins." And I was like, "Who?" And she's like, "Oh, he's a serial killer in South Carolina." I'm like, "What?" And now that I've actually read it, I'm like, "Nanny, no. Why?
Why, Nanny? Why?
Why'd you do this to yourself?
Why, Nanny?
Why?" So Betty Jean Gates and him went to Cookeville, Tennessee, in that car that he had stolen from his cousin.
I know exactly where that is. I was in Cooksville, Tennessee this past couple months.
Yeah, I know where it is too. It's not too big and not too small. Nice size little town. But anyway.
Where I got my oil changed.
Huh, cool. Well,
Fun fact for you.
what he did was he took this car that he had stolen from his cousin and put a new paint job on it, new parts and Florida tags, so they didn't know that it was him. Right. But what he didn't know was that Betty Jean Gates had the cops looking for her in 5 different states.
Well, shit. Betty Jean.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't know what
Betty
she
Jean,
did.
they playing.
Well, when they got to Cookeville, they checked into a motel, and she took a carton of cigarettes and some money out of her suitcase and gave them to Pee Wee, and said that her brother was in the Putnam County Jail, and he needed money for bail. And she explained that she couldn't go in because she was wanted in Tennessee for forgery and larceny in West Virginia, accessory to armed robbery in Virginia, forgery and grand theft auto in Kentucky, forgery and armed assault in Ohio, and again in Virginia for forgery, grand larceny, burglary, and escape.
Jesus. She was not playing.
She was not
Good
playing.
Lord.
Betty Jean.
Betty Jean.
Xena from Zanzibar. Anyway,
That's why she changed her name to Xena from Zanzibar.
and also don't forget Helen McCoy too. That was her other
I,
name.
I still
Yep.
like Xena from Zanzibar.
I like Xena from Zanzibar too. Well, he knew that the law was looking for him as well, as he called it. I love how in South we call it the law.
The Niles looking for me.
The law was looking for him. So, he knew that if he had been smart, he would just been like, "Girl, you got way too many problems for me. I got my own problems, so we're gonna have to part ways." But he wasn't. I mean,
It's been nice.
he was a
Nice
smart
to know you.
man, but
I'm
he
out.
wasn't a smart man, right? Like exactly, like he I would have been out, but
It's been
this is him.
real. It's been fun, but it ain't been real fun, so I'm out.
But I think the reason why he stayed with her because she could put her ankles behind her head.
Because she was Xena from Zanzibar.
She was in for Zanzibar. So he went to Putnam County Jail and saw her brother. They didn't look alike at all. Didn't think too much about it. He had the same name as her, so I gave him the carton of Pall Malls and the envelope of money. Went back to the motel and his car was gone.
Oh, shit.
So then he started beginning to, kind of worry and wonder. But he's like, maybe she just went somewhere and never came back. And he tried to sleep, but he couldn't sleep because he was worried about his vehicle. And next thing you know, his hotel room is full of police officers. They dragged him to the county jail.
Well, shit.
What had happened was that that carton of Pall Malls that he took into the jail had a straight razor blade taped in the middle of it, and he escaped. Come to find out, that wasn't her brother; that was her husband.
Oh, shit. And they ran away together, didn't they?
They stole his car
Oh, and ran away
and
together.
ran away together.
Damn it, Xena from Zanzibar.
Xena from Zanzibar fucked over Pee Wee Gaskins, and it's hilarious. Like I can't even. That's just something out of a freaking movie right there. I'm sorry. He said, while I could appreciate the cleverness of her plan, I wasn't too happy.
I wouldn't be either. Stole my car. Didn't tell me about a husband you had. Yeah, I think I'd be a bit upset too.
They charged him of aiding and abetting and escapee, which obviously sheriff interrogated him, told him that his name was David Gaskins. When they ended up finding out, he was not David Gaskins. He was Pee Wee Gaskins. And guess what? The way
He was wanted for a whole bunch of shit.
Do you know how they found out?
Well, let's see. This was in the we're in the what, 40s, 50s now?
We're in the 50s right now, but think about it. So something's going to come to bite him in the ass later on.
Oh, the tattoo on his shoulder.
Yep.
You dumb son of a bitch.
He would not have gotten caught if it had not been for that dumbass tattoo.
Oh, you dumb son bitch.
Yeah, like that is just that got me. So he was supposed now he's still due to spend the rest of his time in South Carolina jail, right? But because of the fact that he had done this thing in Tennessee, he got 3 months. Excuse me, he got 6 months for the aiding and abetting, and then 3 months more for cutting a prisoner while he was in jail in Tennessee. So he spent 9 months in Tennessee in jail. So when that was up, he went back to South Carolina, but this time he was put in a maximum security unit because they weren't going to let him escape this time. So what happened was, because of the fact that he stole a vehicle and drove it across state lines, this became a federal offense at this point, right? So they ended up putting him in a federal prison in Atlanta. Now, here's the thing. A federal prison is very interesting because they have certain ways that they do things there. It's not like state pen where they have like a pecking order and everything. In federal prison, they run this thing like a tightly run ship. There was no power men. There were no nothing like that. But there were prisoners that basically got, what's the word I'm looking for? Privileges that other ones didn't get. And one of them was a man by the name of Frank Costello. He was in the
Sounds like he would be in the mob.
he was. He was in the
Damn.
Genovese. Yeah, he was in the Genovese family in New York, and he was doing prison for conspiracy charges. And he was a big man in jail. Like everybody knew him, everybody respected him. They didn't do anything against him or anything like that. So what he did was he made sure that while he was in jail, because he worked in the laundry room, he made sure that every single day Costello had clean sheets every day, and they
Good.
respected him for it. They basically told him, "Hey, we like you." Their sentence was 5 years. They were going to be there. Or they were only going to be there for a couple more months. Were almost done. They basically said, "Hey, we like you. You're a good guy. We haven't had any issues with you. You've done good to help us out. Why don't you think about New York? Why don't you come with us to New York? We got a place for you. We'll put you in the family. And one of my favorite quotes from Goodfellas is, "Ever since I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster."
Right?
And I would have taken that in a heartbeat. It would have got him out of South Carolina. He would have been in the been in a gang with like some of the biggest men in New York.
He'd be in the mob.
He would have been in the mob, but no, he decided he didn't want to do that. And I got an envelope after they left, and it was a paperback dictionary, English to Italian, and Italian to English. And taped to the pages were three $100 bills and a copy of that address street where they were going to be, and a telephone number. And they said, if whenever you got out, if you wanted a job, we have a job for you. August 6, 1962, he got released, got a new suit, $20, and a bus ticket home to Florence, South Carolina.
Dear Lord.
Yeah. So he was 28 years old at the time, and he did not want to work on the tobacco farm. He was tired of that, and so him and his stepdaddy had some words. He backhanded him, said he wasn't going to deal with the abuse anymore, and decided that he was going to leave. He told him that he had made his bones in prison, and that if he ever hit him again, that he was going to kill him, despite his love for his mama. So what they
Once
did
you've
was,
killed one person, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have a problem killing another.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now the parrots here in Florence are kind of a big, right? They're kind of like one of the big families in the area, and that was his other side of the family. And his cousin let him live there for a little while. He did, of course, some more shade tree mechanic work. Of course, people knew him in the area because they knew of everything that he had done. Um, so he either went to Columbia or Charleston, Charlotte, looking for work, and it was really, really hard. So one day, he was working somewhere and he saw a guy by the name of Preacher Todd. And the preacher needed somebody to help him, because what he would do is he would go to cities up and down the coast, and he was basically a Bible salesman. And what he would do is he knew that they were going in some of the well-to-do areas like Murrells Inlet, Pawleys Island, Mount Pleasant, North Charleston, Georgetown, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
like coastal homes in this area that are worth a lot of money. So what he was doing is he would, the preacher would go and do his sermons, and while everybody was in town doing, watching the sermon and listening, to this preacher talk, Pee Wee would go in the houses and steal stuff.
People were at church.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
just rude.
Yeah, so he get thousands of dollars, sell it to some guy he knew in Sumter, and that was it, right? So in 1962, he got married again. Now keep in mind, none of these marriages after Mary, because he married, what was her name? Alice. Yeah, Alice. Excuse me, Janie Alice Holden. That's his only legit marriage at this point, because he hasn't divorced her yet, right? But he got married again to this girl by the name of Jerry Dolores. Now, Jerry Dolores, BT Dub, is my ex-husband's great aunt.
Uh, it so blows my mind.
I know, it's craziness, right? Well, okay. So she basically traveled with him sometimes when he was on the road with the church, but she didn't know what he. And they would go back to where she lived, which was in Prospect, South Carolina. And about after the second year, him and Preacher Todd went their life, went their separate ways. Yeah, this is coming bad. Okay, pre-warning for those of you who might want to skip ahead, maybe a couple minutes. This is good. Just let you know. The other stuff wasn't so bad. So there was this girl by the name of Patsy. She was 12 years old. Went to her house, and he knew Patsy's family, and that they were gone, probably to church or whatever. And she let him in, and told her how pretty she was, and all this other stuff, and started
I
talking
think
about
where this is going.
how experienced he was. He told her about how many women he had screwed, and about the girl that he had chopped up with a hatchet, one he beat with a hammer, and the man that he had killed in prison. And he could tell that she was getting scared her and started crying. And, well, he proceeded to rape her.
Jesus, man.
He heard her aunts driving up the driveway, told him that they couldn't get caught. He took her out the window and ran to his mom's house, to his room upstairs, and then that's where the cops found him and her. And yeah, went back to Florence County Jail and was charged with statutory rape and carnal knowledge of a 12-year-old. And believe it or not, that's still not the worst one. Yeah, I'm telling you, this was rough, really rough. So he went back to jail for a quick moment when he went to go talk. When they went to go get his lawyer and the prosecutor to come in and talk to him, he jumped out of a window.
Well, shit. Okay, Ted Bundy.
Yeah, he jumped out of. He pulled a Ted Bundy. He seriously did. He jumped out that window and he ran. He thought about going to the place in New York and changed his mind. So he went to a place called Dillon, which is about 45 minutes away from Florence, and stole a 4500 Galaxy and ended up going to Greensboro, North Carolina. Greensboro, North Carolina.
There you go. You'll get it out eventually.
I swear, words are hard today. So according to his calculations, that's where he thought that uncle were going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was going to go look for him again. But he wasn't sure where. So he was just like, well, I'm just going to go try to find another place. And he remembered Poss telling him about Robertson County. Excuse me, Roberson County. I always forget that one messed up. I always want to say Robertson, but it's Roberson.
Oh, man, it's not as bad as Rutherfordton.
I still can't even say that. Okay. So unofficially and now officially, at the time, there was a tribe of Native Americans called the Lumbees in North Carolina. Now they are an official tribe, but back then they really weren't, and they were still trying to get their status. But he said that you could get lost there and nobody would find you because the tribe did not trust cops in that area. And so he went in there and just, rented a room at a boarding house. He said that was run by this Lumbee mama. That's what he called her. Said he paid rent for a month in advance. The next day he drove the car all the way to Charlotte, left it in a downtown garage, the car that he stole, and then took a bus back. No, excuse me. He took a bus, but then got an old car and drove that back to the boarding house and parked it behind the landlady's place and started repairing it. Because, that's what he could do. He could fix cars. He said that the whole time that he was there, he basically spent a lot of time by himself. Picture shows, roadhouses, tried to find women, but just weren't really into any of them. And the end of the second month he was there, he married a 17-year-old Lumbee girl named Lenny. So they went to dinner a lot, they talked, they laughed, got married, lived together for 3 months, but he got restless, which of course, what he always did.
Mm-hmm.
And he left her, and went back to looking for Jerry.
Not Jerry.
Yeah. Remember, Jerry was the one that he was married to before. Let me make sure I get this right. Jerry was the one that he got married to before he was arrested for statutory rape of Patsy. And called her at work, and she said that she would meet him. He thought that she was mad at him because of the whole Patsy situation. But he lied to her and told her that it was the state trying to find something on him.
Well, that wouldn't be very hard to do.
And one of the reasons why he couldn't find Poss was because one morning he had gotten a mobile home in Florida, and they had bought a kerosene heater, and one of the kids got up, knocked the kerosene heater over, and burnt the house down, and burnt the house with Poss's wife and all their kids in it. He came home to find that his house had burnt down with his wife and kids, and ended up killing himself.
Damn.
So yeah, so that was the end of his friendship with Poss. So Jerry and him left Florida because he was like, you know what, we're going to leave Florida. Because remember, she was living down in Fort Wells, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
They crossed the Florida-Georgia line. And he said he was, yeah, no, that's still crack up over that. He was thinking about Poss, just being, very, just kind of upset about that whole situation because he's like, that was a good friend of his. Like, that was like a big part of his life, even though Poss was a rapist and everything. That was his rapist. Like, anyway.
Munchausen syndrome. Not
Yeah,
Munchausen syndrome. Stockholm syndrome.
something. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't understand that. But anyway, he got to the point where he was just sitting there, just kind of daydreaming about it, and then all of a sudden he saw sirens and flashing lights behind him. Now he knew that if he stopped, he was going to jail because he was still wanted. Because he escaped. As in the words of my child, he escaped.
If not escapade.
Escapade. He his tire blew out. He lost control. Landed into like the swampy area. He crawled out the window, sloshed away, and ran through the swamp. Now he knew swamps because back in the day, before he started working on the tobacco farms with him and Mary got married, he
Mm-hmm.
was working in the swamps there, so he knew the swamps like the back of his hand. He heard it yelling at Jerry to raise her hands and walk towards them. Poor Jerry.
Poor Jerry.
That's although, you think about it, she was one of the lucky ones. She got away.
True.
When he finally, because he hitchhiked, got to Savannah and ended up going back to the boarding house in Lumbee, or Robertson County, on the Lumbee tribe. And, yeah, the television newspapers had run his picture and said that he was an escape killer who died in a swamp in Georgia.
Well, shit.
So
That would have been an easy out.
that would have been his out right then and there. Like, they thought he was dead. But no, that, again, was not enough for Mr. Pee Wee Gaskins to live his life. So, I lost the lid to my pen and I'm pissed off right now. I just literally had it in my hand and I have no idea what happened to it and it's making me mad. Anyway, it's one of my Cricut pens too, just pens.
Yes.
Anyway, so, the landlady, when he got back, saw that he was alive and was like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're not dead." But didn't think his wife, Lenny, was going to be too happy to know he's back.
No,
Especially,
because he just up and left her.
and was seeing pictures of him talking about his other wife, Jerry, on the news.
Oh, shit. She's not going to be too thrilled.
He told her some story about how he was ill and had gone to a veterans hospital and that it was his ex-wife, Jerry, who had helped him. Lenny seemed to believe him, and all would have been well. Except for the next morning, he woke up to cops sitting up, staring at him while he was asleep in bed. Lenny had called the cops on him.
Good job. Good job, Lenny.
That was her revenge. That was Lenny's revenge.
Good job.
6 years for statutory rape plus 2 more years for escaping. Went back to the state pen. There were no powermen, but he was still, pretty known because of the things that he had done there. Yeah, he got paroled in 1968 for good behavior.
Oh. Did he learn his lesson?
Oh God, no, because this is where the story would end, but obviously not. So the South Carolina Parole Board gave him 2 conditions. One of them was that he could not set foot in Florence County for 2 years because apparently that's where he committed all his crimes. And that was the biggest condition. There was a couple other ones, but that was the biggest one. So he was 35 years old in 1968. He was bound and determined he was not going to go back in prison. So he went back to Sumter, went back to roofing, construction, all that stuff. Rented a shack in the country. Just basically kind of kept to himself. Well, all his family lived in Florence County, including his first wife and his little girl, which I will talk about her in just a little bit. But she is 17 now, already married herself and already had kids. So he couldn't go see them because of the rules.
His conditions of parole.
Yeah. Now this is another direct quote, guys. I'm sorry. I have to do these direct quotes just so you can see the kind of man that we're dealing with here. Whenever I felt the need of a new piece of ass, strange stuff it was called then, There were always plenty to be found hanging around the honky tonks.
Honky tonks.
Yep. He said now they were called clubs. He said that he kept getting this heaviness in his gut again. Like there was just something. And he couldn't figure out what it was, but it would make him edgy, and he didn't know what was wrong with him. He couldn't understand it. Like he could not understand what in the world was making him feel this way. So he would drive along just to waste time. He would drive around the Carolina coast, and especially on the roads where him and his preacher friend had driven, because it would make him feel a little bit better. So this is, the late 1960s at this time. And there was a lot of hitchhiking back in the 60s. People were always hitchhiking to the beach. And so he saw this one girl, and he picked her up and would drive them, wherever they needed to go. Sometimes he would offer to get a motel room for the night. They said no, then they'd offer money for, sexual favors. If they said no again or got upset, he would stop the car and be like, "Bitch, get out." Like that was exact words. He'd be like, "Bitch, get out." I didn't want no trouble, and if I knew the girl got scared, she would call the law, and I would not be wanting to go back to jail. That's the exact words. Even when he found one who needed money and still did sexual favors, it was not exciting for him. So he said he was trying to figure out what he was doing. It wasn't like he couldn't get what he wanted. It just didn't seem enough.
It wasn't what he wanted.
Exactly. So the whole spring and summer, that's what he did. He drove up and down the beach giving rides to women and either getting sexual favors for money or not. And one Sunday morning in 1969, he said it was a pain in his gut that was so heavy he couldn't breathe. So it was September. Now, you got to think about it. In the state of South Carolina, state of Georgia, between the coastal area, Tybee Island, which is down in Georgia, Polly's Island in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. Most of these places are deserted after Labor Day, and there's not as many hitchhikers at this particular time. But one afternoon, he saw a woman hitchhiking. She was blonde, tanned, and maybe 18 or 19, so there wouldn't be any statutory stuff there because he was always afraid about going back to jail for that. She threw her duffel bag in the back seat. He asked where he was going. She said Charleston, Jacksonville tomorrow. She and her friends were going to go work on a yacht in Miami. And then she started talking. So said that finally after she stopped talking, he finally interrupted her and said that he hadn't actually planned to drive no further than Georgetown, but he would gladly take her all the way to Charleston where they could have supper at a nice restaurant and share a hotel room. And then she busted out laughing. Which normally would have made him pretty pissed off because he was the type of guy that would get super. I mean, he was the original incel, like he was the guy that was like, well, girls are nothing but bitches, and this is what he said in Autobiography: girls are nothing but bitches, and they always know that they got something that we want, and they can keep it from us whenever they want to, and it's unfair. That's what he said.
It is a piece of work.
Yeah, like he felt like women owed him everything, and she said no thanks, and the same laugh again. And I said, whatever you want is fine with me, but you'll have to get the Charleston you're on because I don't want to have nothing to do with you. And she said, okay, you can let me out here. And she got out. Psych. She didn't.
It was way too easy.
It would have been too easy, right? It was actually a couple miles that he found a dirt road, turned sideways in the seat, stared at her, and said nothing. He just looked at her. He smiled. She smiled. And she turned to reach for her duffel bag. And when she did, he slammed his fist into the side of her head and knocked her head against the dash. Hit her a couple more times. She didn't move. He took off his belt, tied her hands behind her back, and he remembered something that the wise men from jail had said to him: killers don't get caught, but the bodies don't get found. That was his lesson that he learned in jail. So he drove down the dirt road, quarter mile, turned around, saw a sawdust mound and a pulley chain. Got her over there. And every time he would yell, he jerked the belt, choked her, and had a knife that he called an Arkansas toothpick. And then he stripped her naked, raped her, and then did a couple more times. Decided that it was time to basically kill her. And he ended up going to a store and bought clothesline because he didn't have anything with him at the time. Like, this was something that he wasn't even really planning on doing. He thought it was just going to be another one of those rounds of sexual favors, drop them off, be done with it, right? And that wasn't the case. Uh, there was he knew that this wasn't going to be something that he was going to let go. And he ended up going to the store, getting the clothesline, and then went and took her to a swampy area and basically strangled her and killed her. He said that that night, when he left her in the swamp, he threw her in the swamp, threw her stuff in the swamp, and he said for the first time in his life, he actually felt that heaviness in his stomach go away. And yeah, so that was his very first, what they would call coastal murder. This happened a lot. Uh, he said that, and from then on, whenever that pain came back, he knew what to do to get rid of it.
But wouldn't they find the bodies like in the swamp, or were like the gators eating them?
We got to think about something about South Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, the swampy areas of our. Yeah, there are a lot of alligators there. I mean, they're abundant here. You can't even go into some of the lakes here without running into like groups of alligators, like in a family group. They're everywhere in the swamps, and so for him to do that, they weren't going to find her. Later on, one of the stories that I'm going to be covering is the story of Brittany Drexel, and that one right there is pretty sad. But Brittany Drexel, the same fate happened to her. Essentially, she was fed to the gators because that's what people do around here to get rid of bodies. They know it's almost like Florida. You know, they know that if you get down to the swamps of Florida, you want to get rid of a body, you just throw them in. It's the same thing. So that was his very first, what they call coastal kill. He said by October of 1970, he had picked up and killed 10 girls, including the 3 that he had killed in 1969. He would drive up and down the coastal drive between Murrells Inlet, Charleston, Georgetown, Myrtle Beach, would pick up women, tell them that he was taking them to wherever they wanted to go, and then would kill them. Now, he always left Sumter to do any of his kills because he knew that if he did anything in Sumter, they were going to tie the murders back to him. But one weekend, he would stop by this place called the Drive-In in Sumter, and there was these 2 girls by the name of Janice Kirby and Patricia Ann Alsbrook. One was Janice Kirby was 15, Patricia Ann Alsbrook was 17. They worked. Excuse me, they didn't work. They were friends with friends of his, and he knew their mothers and aunts and uncles and all them because, again, Sumter's kind of a small town. And Janice and her friend Patricia Ann had gone out drinking, and they always called him Uncle Pee Wee. And he was out that night and met up with them and saw that Janice had been drinking and she was super drunk. But the other girls that were with him had to be home by a certain time and wanted to know if he could take her and then sober her up and then take her home. Well, he said, "Sure, I'll do that." And that's not what he did at all. He ended up creating what most serial killers do, which is a rape kit. And he took them back to his little shack, raped and tortured them, and buried them. They found them 6 years later because he was on death row at the time and wanted to reach a deal, and so he told them where they were at. His next known victim was Peggy Catino. She was 13. Now here's the thing about Peggy Catino. Peggy Catino was 13 when she died, but whoever killed Peggy had left her body where it was sure to be found. They went on to actually arrest and try and send to jail a man by the name of William T. Jr. Pierce. And in the book, his final truth is that in December of 1970, the month after he killed Janice and Patricia Ann, he was actually the one that killed Peggy Catino. He passed the polygraph test, had an alibi, and this other guy actually went to jail for it. But after Pee Wee Gaskins got arrested, he actually said, "Hey, I was the one who did it. I can tell you where the body is and all this other stuff." The problem was that he had buried her near one of the other, I think it was Patricia Ann. Yeah, he buried her near Patricia Ann, but he'd only confessed to killing Janice Kirby and not Patricia Ann. So he couldn't really say anything until later because he didn't want them to find the other body because he had not admitted to that one yet. Let's see here. Now, all right. Whenever they found Peggy Catino's body, because like they said, they had left it out. They said that they thought that when Junior Pierce had killed her, that the burns that were found on her body were cigarette burns. But no, he said that was not what the case was. What it was is that it was actually sulfuric acid that he had been dripping on her body.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Mm.
After this happened, he got married again. He doesn't mention her name. And I couldn't find any mention of the name of this next poor soul that ended up being his wife. But in the process after that, he killed again in, what was it, 1970? So in 71, he claims to have killed 11 coastal kills, including this one, which was Martha Ann Clyde. That was her nickname, Dix, who was 20. Now this is, I was laughing hard at this, but this is what he said, and I'm going to read it exactly as it says. Don't come at me. This is his words, not mine. She was tall and strong and tough and called herself Clyde so as to let folks know that she was lesbianese.
My God.
I lost it when he said that. Now, he claims that he is not prejudiced. He claims that he is not a racist. But I will tell you, he does use the N word a couple times in his book. So that kind of lets me know that, Pee-wee, you might not be telling the whole truth there, sweetheart. This is supposed to be the final truth, and I've just caught you in a lie because Maury says so. But yeah. She would go around and tell everybody, that I'm pregnant with little Pee-wee, I'm pregnant with a little Pee-wee, and that the baby, he was going to name the baby after him and everything like that. And he was started getting to the point where he was getting annoyed with her because she would always talk about, like, they were always having sex and that he was, he got her pregnant and all this other stuff. And he got done with, he was like, I'm done. I'm done with you continuously picking on me. And so he killed her.
That escalated so quickly.
Yeah, and the weird thing about it is the way that he killed her, which was, normally he was the type of person that would like choke somebody or he would, slit their throats or anything like that. But no, this one he poisoned her with pills. It was so weird. And that's the only one he did like that. So I don't get it. Anyway. So Ann Culberson, who was 16, kept for days after he picked her up hitchhiking. Now, that was unusual for him. That was an unusual MO for him. He would normally pick him up, have him for a couple hours, and then kill him. But this one he kept for a couple of days. So there was that. Now there was Eddie Brown and Bertie Brown. And this is where it's going to get a little confusing because there's a lot of overlap in some of these people. So basically, Eddie Brown and Bertie Brown were killed because of a weapons deal gone wrong. He had gotten into buying and selling black market weapons, and they were going to rat him out to the feds, and so he killed him.
It just seemed to escalate so quickly.
Right. I mean, he was just basically getting into all kinds of shit at this point, Jackie Freeman, who was 14 years old, she was a runaway. He picked her up in October of 71, killed her after he raped her, and then buried her where he had buried Janice Kirby. Oh, by the way, Janice Kirby was, I don't know if I mentioned that or not. Then you had Doreen Dempsey. Now, this is the one that, this is the one I have to mentally prepare for. This one's hard. Okay. Doreen Dempsey was a friend of his, knew her for a long time. Her family worked with the carnival that Pas's family had worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, his wife knew her. Like, he's still married at this time. Remember, this whole entire time he's still married. Doreen was got pregnant and had a little girl named Robin Michelle, and they would come and see them off and on because their families knew each other. Uh, Doreen got pregnant again by a guy the name of Johnny Sellers. It was a guy he had done some previous deals with, either probably black market parts or whatever. One evening in December, she shows up 7 months pregnant. Um, Said that Doreen and Robin, which was her 2-year-old daughter, needed a place to live until the baby came, and they decided to take her in. But he suggested that she ought to go back to Charleston or to her stepmother's house in Sumter. This guy, Johnny Sellers, ended up taking off, leaving her. And she was upset. So he said that he was going to arrange it to where that he would put her up as long as she would perform sexual favors for him every once in a while, and he would take care of her and her daughter. And he had this really big hearse that was fixing up for a local guy, and told his wife that he had given Doreen $20 and was going to take her to the bus station to get her to her family. So they left, and he told Doreen that he wanted her to do sexual favors for her. And she was like, I don't want to do that because her daughter was in the car with her. And so they ended up doing it anyway. He put handcuffs on her. And then when she was doing a sexual favor on him, he picked up a hammer and hit her on the side of the head.
Jesus.
Now, when she was performing fellatio, he stopped, and the little girl, who's 2 years old, started crying, and he made her finish what her mother was doing.
Oh my God, Elicia.
Yeah, yeah. And then he raped her and killed her.
I have no words.
You should have seen me last night reading this part. I was taking notes, I was reading and taking notes and reading and taking notes, basically trying to get all the murder and information for each murder correct. I still feel like I'm gonna cry. Like
Oh my
that
God.
that just yeah, yeah. So he killed several more people. He killed one guy named Horace Jones for trying to sleep with his wife. Silas Barnwell Yates he was killed as a murder for hire. Avery Howard, 35, and Diane Neely was the murder for hire gone wrong. Kim Gerkins was 13. She was raped and killed. And then Dennis Bellamy and John Henry Knight were half brothers, and Diane Bellamy was the sister of the Diane Bellamy Neely who was killed. That was they were brother and sister. Shot the two brothers in the back of the head on October 10th. He had promised to pay Dennis Bellamy for some stolen guns when he confronted Bellamy at Gaskins' home in Prospect. He killed him.
These escalate so quickly, and I know I've said that, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the one thing that got him was the killing of Dennis Bellamy and Johnny Knight, who was 15. What happened was Neely, who was a friend of his, knew about all of these killings, right? Like Walter Neely, he was his best friend and
Mm-hmm.
co-conspirator,
Mm-hmm.
knew about all the killings, everything. Like, he basically told him everything. Like, he opened up to him and told him everything. And when Neely got involved with the police, he sang like a bird and told police where to find the bodies of 8 of his victims, told him every fucking thing.
Well, you know
So,
what we say about snitches.
well, he got put into a different prison. Obviously, they put him under protection. Gaskins was tried on one charge of murder in May 24th of 1976. He's found guilty and sentenced to death, which was later commuted to life in prison whenever South Carolina's General Assembly decided to halt capital punishment for a little while because of the U.S. Supreme Court guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
On September 2nd, 1982, he committed another murder in jail. He killed a death row inmate by the name of Rudolph Tyner, who received a sentence for killing an elderly couple during a bungled armed robbery. Gaskins was hired to commit this murder by Tony Simo, the son of Tyner's victims. He made a portable radio and gave it to Tyner and said that this would be able to help them communicate between cells, and he had put C4 plastic on it, told him to put it to his ear and that he would call him, and when he did, it exploded.
Shit.
Yeah. So while on death row, Gaskins claimed to have committed between 100 to 110 murders, including including that of the Peggy Catino.
Yeah.
That they swear that he didn't do, but he knows too much about it for it to be not a thing. Of the 14 confirmed murders, he received 9 life sentences for murdering 9 people, which would be Doreen Dempsey, Robin Dempsey, Johnny Sellers, Jesse Ruth Judy, the Barnwell Yates guy, Diane Neely, Avery Lee Howard, Leroy Howard Jr., Dennis Bellamy, and John Henry Knight. He received 2 death sentences, one for killing Dennis Bellamy, which was overturned by the Supreme Court, and Gaskins led police to the bodies of 4 victims he admitted to killing. He was never tried for their murders after police discovered the bodies of Janice Kirby, Patricia Ann Alsbrook, Martha Ann Dix, and Kim Gaskins. He went to jail, obviously, and on September 6, 1991, at 1:10 a.m., Gaskins was executed by electric chair, hours after he tried to kill himself by slitting his wrists. And his last words were,
Bitch way out.
Yeah. His last words were, "I'll let my lawyers talk for me. I'm ready to go."
Well then.
Yeah. So that is the horrible and god-awful story of South Carolina's own serial killer, Pee Wee Gaskins.
It was a story and a half.
Yeah. His nicknames were the meanest man in America, the redneck Charles Manson.
Oh my god.
I thought you would like that. The hitchhiker killer, Junior Parrott, and Pee Wee. There were 15 confirmed deaths, 110 claimed between the years of 1953 and 1982. Yep. He died at age 58. And,
Good job, and I'm sorry you had to read that shit.
Oh, that one part is going to haunt me for a while. I'm not even going to lie. Like, I read that and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, it's one thing, okay? It is one thing to, like, hear it from another podcast or to watch a show about it, but to read this from this man's brain directly just fucked me up. To know that he wrote those words. This wasn't somebody else writing these words or somebody else telling the story. This was from his brain. And that is what got to me. That was tough. I think that's probably going to be one of the toughest ones I do.
That was tough.
It was tough.
That was a tough one to listen to.
Yeah. It's hard to believe that somebody has that much hatred and anger towards that he was able to do all these things and not feel
remorse.
And also not only just not feel remorse, but feel relief afterwards. He is what a lot of psychiatrists, especially in the world of serial killers, in the world of when you start talking about behavioral analysis, he is a sexual sadist, and that is one of the rarest forms of serial killers, and that just speaks volumes right there.
Mm-mm-mm.
And it is definitely a weird stain on our family. I mean, to know these things and to know that this guy was related to me in a weird way. So, like, if that's I think we figured it out. He's like my 3rd or 4th cousin.
That's weird.
I mean, the bad thing about it is when you look at a picture of him, he's got my family's ears too, which is
Not the ears.
yeah, he's got my dad's side of the family's ears. Like it's just But yeah. So, whew, I don't even know what to do at the end of that. Like I that was craziness. Oh, okay, I know one thing I can do to kind of do a palate cleanser. The new episode of Destination Fear came on last night, and guess where they went?
Trans-Allegheny?
No, they went
Where?
to oh my gosh, now my brain doesn't want to work because I just talked about some serious bullshit murder. Let's see here. They went to oh my god, it's gonna drive me crazy. My brain is not working. Pee-wee Gaskins, why you do this to me? They went to Waverly Hills.
Oh, Beverly Hills.
And not only did they go to Waverly Hills, okay, because you know what this show's about. Like they go and they spend the night these places,
Yes.
right? Okay. They didn't only just go to Waverly Hills. They like okay, for those of you who are listening and live in areas where it snows a lot, you know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately for a lot of us down in the South, we don't get to see this, but I lived in Pennsylvania for a while, so I actually know what this sounds like. There's this sound after it snows. It's the sound of like nothingness. You know what? Have you ever heard that sound before?
Yeah.
Where it's so quiet.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. That it's just so quiet and so just like you just can't really hear anything, and I don't know. It's just this weird feeling. So I can't imagine, and especially okay, snow is ice, which is water, right? And they're staying the night in a place like Waverly Hills, surrounded in snow.
You didn't pay me enough money to stay overnight in Waverly Hills.
Right, but then to stay overnight in Waverly Hills
No.
surrounded in snow, which
No.
is basically an amplification of everything there. And they caught some really cool things on video and oh, it was a really good episode, but there's no way you could catch me sleeping in those death tunnels.
Oh, no.
They sent one poor guy to sleep in the death tunnels, and I'm like, no, nope, nope, nope. Put me on the balcony. I'll be okay on the balcony. I think I would be okay on the balcony, but no, not the death tunnels. There's just no way. So there was that. That was kind of an interesting thing to watch last night.
We had
And
1,000 listens.
yes, that was another thing. Oh my gosh, I almost cried.
You guy.
1,000 listens.
And we just hit 200 followers on Facebook like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, that was oh man. And then we're like, we're not doing too bad on Twitter either. Like I think we're almost at like 100 on Twitter. Like I hadn't really checked because supposed to be on vacation. A vacation that was vacation. How that shit goes. What is our follower status here? I do
So I'm
not.
looking at now.
Yeah, I don't know how to use Twitter on a computer. I really
We have 54 followers on Twitter.
don't. Okay, it's not bad. It's not bad at all.
But guys,
Yeah.
1,000 listens.
You guys have no idea. Like, I mean, that's just off of 2 episodes. Like, 2 episodes. We get that. Like, oh man, my heart was so full when I saw that. I was so happy. Like, I couldn't believe it. And, yeah, oh man. Well, there was something else too that I wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah, so, I don't know if you know this or not, Melissa, because, I was going to surprise you, but you probably already saw it. But we have a Patreon.
Oh, I got a glimpse of it.
Yeah, we have a Patreon. Now I set it up as just to go ahead and have the username saved so nobody could take it from us. And I really haven't set up anything as far as like the Patreon support, like essentially what we would, give you guys for hanging out with us and supporting us.
God
and,
only knows why you would want to hang out with us, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
I mean, I can't understand why. I mean, I just talk about like crazy ass families.
And I talk about creepy places. So it is what it is.
It is what it is. But yeah, so we are we're gonna sit down. Like I said, I just haven't had a chance to like really do anything because I was rushing to go on vacation this weekend, and now that that's done and out of the way, and plus my schedule at work is changing next week, which I'm so happy about. I'm no longer going to be on second shift. I'm going to first shift, which makes me happy.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm actually gonna be working in the morning and at night. That's gonna make so much more time. I'm getting off like at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays and Thursdays, so it's gonna give me so much time to actually like, you know, do stuff. So excited. But
So
yeah,
much more time for activities.
yes, especially working on amazing things for our listeners. When it comes to our Patreon, I'm gonna try to figure out some things that we can do. Thought about maybe doing some like sticker packs or, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Like, I'm sure you guys let us know what you would like to see
Bonus
from.
episodes, mini episodes. What would you like?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll do what we can to make you guys happy because like that is just, that right there in itself was, I mean, just knowing that we've got people from all over the world. Like I was looking at our analytics and I'm like, gosh, they're
Shout out to
everywhere.
Houston
Yeah,
being our
Houston.
our number one city.
Like Houston, what's going on? Like I don't know what's going on
That's
there.
good. I actually am related by marriage to one of the Houston Texans.
Oh, okay. So that
So
that could be very well it, yeah. Thank you to our Houston people. We also we also launched a website this week, which whew, that in itself was fun. I do not like making websites, but sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. And I am very proud of it. I think it looks amazing. I was like, Melissa, what do you want on it? She's like, I don't know.
I don't
I don't
know. I
know
don't
either.
care. I don't know. I don't care.
I was like, I don't know what to put on here. So that
But it
is
looks great.
yeah, it's darkpodcastus.com. We're going to try to stick with that US theme because somebody has Dark Podcast as their everything. So, it is what it is. So, we got that. It's just a basic website right now, just kind of giving you guys links to be able to get to our Patreon, get to our Twitter, where you can listen to us, all that good stuff. Just like another extra way to find us. We also created a link tree, which link trees are pretty awesome to put on like your social media to help people out. And that is link tree. So it's linktr.ee / Dark Podcast. Believe it or not, we could actually get Dark Podcast for that one. So you can find all of our links there as well. And then of course we have Instagram. Or what our Instagram is Dark Podcast US as well. Same thing with Twitter, Dark Podcast US. Same thing as Facebook, Dark Podcast US. If you
If you
can't find us,
search, if you can't find us, search Dark Podcast US. You'll find us.
you'll find us somewhere, I promise. But yeah, so that's been working really hard to get you guys connected with us, and we're working on getting our sound quality better, which I think is just from the first episode to second episode, and now I think our third episode is just going to be even better. Yeah, that in itself was hilarious this weekend. I am so sorry. I am such spaz.
It is. It's okay.
Like
I'm going to stop saying it is what it is.
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So yeah. Oh yeah, one more thing that I wanted to tell you about while I have you here. Just because I know that the girls over at and that's why we drink love talking about like their milkshakes and wine.
Oh, yes.
So M is always talking about her milkshakes.
Team
And
wine and team milkshake.
I'm totally team milkshake because like I do love
Uh,
wine. Do not get me wrong.
I'm team wine.
I love wine. Do not get me wrong. But milkshakes is something I think you could just basically have whenever. So that to me is like that sells me. I went to Tony's today.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, Tony's.
Went to Tony's Ice Cream in Gastonia, North Carolina on the way home, and I actually got a T-shirt from them. So you guys sponsor us. It says
Yes, please.
it says on the back, if you ask for a lid, you ain't from Gastonia.
Yes.
And
Yes.
For you guys that don't know what I'm talking about, Tony's Ice Cream is like one of the oldest ice cream makers in North Carolina. They make homemade ice cream like right there in their little area. Like they have like a little
Right
ice cream
across the street.
parlor. Yeah, right across the street. They make the ice cream in house, and they make these milkshakes that are just I can't even.
Boy,
Like Melissa and I used to sneak off all the time from everybody and like go to Tony. Sorry for those of our family members who didn't know about that, but sorry.
we're
Uh,
listening and
yeah, that's true. That's true. They'd probably have like a conniption of the stuff that we're talking about. But anyway, yeah. So we went to Tony's and I got me my favorite chocolate milkshake. Had a hot dog with mayonnaise in your honor.
mayonnaise and chili.
Yep, mayonnaise and chili. But anyway, yeah, so I just had to tell you about that. I was thinking about the girls from and that's why we drink whenever I got that milkshake. I was like, M would have a fit over this milkshake.
Yes.
I should send her a message and be like, "Hey, so you want a good milkshake? Here's where you can go."
If you ever come back to Charlotte, I got a place in Gastonia for you.
Yes, absolutely. It's only a like 30-minute
Drive.
drive and you'll be right there and it's on the main drag. Can't miss it. It's so amazing. But yeah, so I mean that was the horrible, god awful story of Pee Wee Gaskins. Did you want to tell everybody what you're working on for next week or did you want to keep it a surprise? I'm totally cool either way.
I'll keep it a surprise.
Okay. Awesome. Looking forward to it.
It's
Yay.
it's fucked me up too, so I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I'm pretty fucked up over my story, so
I don't know how I'm gonna sleep tonight after telling that story. Like I just I like I said, I'm so desensitized from so many thousands of hours of podcasts and TV shows and, murder mysteries and things like that. But that I
that's a
just
whole new something.
that's a whole nother fucked up right there. So anyway, well, I think we've gotten to the point where it's time to say adios and
Goodbye.
yeah.
Farewell.
Good night. Oh my god, Travis has never seen The Sound of Music.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was very disappointed in that. I was like, well, guess what?
It's been a
You're,
good run.
you're not gonna like me very much longer. He's like, what? It's like, you're watching it. Anyway. Alright, so you guys, thank you again so much for listening, for hitting 1,000 listens in just 2 episodes. Like, that just, wow.
Thank you, thank you.
Blows
And
my
again,
mind.
if you need to find us, Dark Podcast US, we'll be there.
Yep. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. And as always, try to stay out of the dark. Have a good one.